The guy takes your passport. People smile ingratiatingly. They make supplicating motions. They grovel. This disgusting petty official. My God, if you do that, if you act like that to one of these worms, then you deserve the world that you're living in today. So I just wanted to draw that to your attention, because a lot of you probably just do that responsibly, reflexively. Don't do that. I never. So why do people do that? I would say that it's a matter of psychology, which is a good measure of what I want to talk about here today. And it has to do with an acceptance of collectivism. And that's the real problem in the world today. It's the philosophical acceptance of collectivism. And I point out to you that collectivism and statism are not intellectual problems. This is one of the problems with the libertarian movement. We're very intellectually oriented. It's why, for instance, 90% of this group are males, because males, for some reason, tend to look at things from an intellectual point of view, but women tend to look at things more from a psychological point of view. It's just in the genes. It's the way we're programmed by an accident of birth. And I point out to you that this is one of the reasons why libertarians are not terribly successful in propagating our philosophy, because we appeal to the intellectual. But the problem is not intellectual. It's easy to explain these things, why statism is stupid and counterproductive. It's really a psychological or even a spiritual problem. That is the nub of the issue, not intellectual. It's a spiritual aberration. So I want to look at some individuals that perhaps characterize the problems. One of my recent bête noirs was the last, not the current, but the last Vice President of the U.S., Dick Cheney. And this guy was a genuine sociopath, an actual criminal. And you could sit down and talk to him about these principles, and he could intellectually comprehend them, because when it comes to passing an IQ test, I would think he was at least at the 110 level anyway. He could understand that. But it would never sink in. The chances of your changing of his attitudes would be slim and none. And Slim's out of town, so you can forget about that. Now, why is that? It's not because he's stupid. It's not because he can't understand. It's because he's a sociopath. It's because it's his nature. And I can substitute hundreds of names that you all know for Cheney. It's just that he's a really glowing example, in my opinion. The guy has no conscience, and he's susceptible to intellectual arguments against the police state to about the same degree a cat can be convinced that he shouldn't torture a mouse before he kills it. They're cold, these sociopaths. They're unemotional. They're like reptiles, even though they look like people. And I'm going to build a case that they may not even be human beings. And you may think I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. Because we all know that power corrupts. But I think it's more important to realize that the corrupt seek power. It's not just power that corrupts, it's the corrupt that actually go to seek power. It's the sociopaths that actually go to seek power. And that's because you've got two basic types of people. There's lots of ways of dividing people. But from a moral, ethical point of view, let me choose this one. You've got people that are interested in controlling the material universe, controlling the world. Scientists, engineers like to manipulate things, build things, and so forth. Okay, that's wonderful. That's one of the mainsprings of human progress. Then you've got other kinds of people. They are not interested so much in that. They're in manipulating material reality. They're interested in manipulating other people. And that's one good way, a good fingerprint of a sociopath. So those are the two types of people. And guess which type inevitably is drawn to government, which is pure congealed power and coercion, forcible manipulation of other people. So I would make the case that sociopaths are inevitably drawn to government, and also big corporations, which are hooked up with government, and the media, which is hooked up to it, because all these things tend to manipulate people. That's what they do for a living. So let me get deeper into the subject of stupidity and evil, and which is which, and if you're dealing with somebody that's not quite right, how can you tell if it's a knave or a fool that you're dealing with? Let me cover stupidity first. Some of you are probably thinking, sure, I can see that Dick Cheney was a sociopath, but what about Bush, who was the president at the time? You all remember him. And you're thinking, he's more of a fool than a knave. Couldn't pity the poor fool. Isn't it a mistake to accuse somebody of malevolence when Occam's razor might indicate that stupidity is a more likely example or answer for doing the wrong thing? And I've thought about it, actually. And stupidity can account for a lot of things in the world. I mean, as Einstein famously said, after hydrogen, the most common thing in the universe is stupidity. So, I mean, you've got to give people the benefit of the doubt based on that for stupidity as opposed to malevolence. But as with all these things, I like to define the words, because stupidity is a word that's often used, and it's usually used as a pejorative. And perversely, when it's used as a pejorative, it's often used by stupid people who call other people stupid and never define the word. So I want to try to do that. It's important to define words precisely, because unless you define words precisely, then how can you be sure you even know what you're talking about, or how can you be sure that other people are defining the word the same way, and then you're at cross purposes and you can't possibly communicate with each other? Most of the time, people use stupidity as a synonym for low intelligence. And that's accurate, of course, but it doesn't really tell us anything we don't already know. And of course, when you look at how stupid the average person is, and then you figure that half of the people are more stupid than average, I mean, we're really in trouble at that point. Going back to the baby Bush, who I think is like a poster child for all this, I've always said that he was stupid. Technically speaking, I think he's actually a moron. Stupidity comes in flavors, and I want to get into this for a moment because it's actually quite important. Most people don't know that a moron, an imbecile, and an idiot, although these words are used interchangeably, they're actually clinically defined. They're not at all the same thing. An imbecile is somebody who can get by in society, walk down the street, get by, needs a little bit of assistance, but he can get by in the real world. An idiot is somebody whose intelligence is so low, he really has to be institutionalized. It's very problematical. A moron, though, is much more interesting because a moron can conduct himself in day-to-day society just like any other human being. He can talk about the weather, state of the roads, he can talk about sports, TV sitcoms, or in the case of Bush, he can talk about the economy, the wars, and he can seem more or less normal. But my guess is that Bush has an actual IQ of about 85, and that would be about the average for a moron. Just somewhat below the average. And I think I can prove this to you by giving you some examples. I'll talk about the current president candidate for the Republicans. The Republicans are the stupid party, the Democrats are the evil party. I want to go into that a little bit more. You have the equivalent up here in Canada, too. Romney appears to be stupid. I'm not sure if he's anywhere near as stupid as Bush, but he appears to be.